You are listening to the Two and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
Grab some poutine and a double-double. It's time for the Two and Out CFL podcast.
He's got it! Oh, baby!
Every week, Travis Currah.
That's Grey Cup me, which is a different person.
And Brazilian Ty.
Hunters are people too.
Talk fantasy football, bring you the latest in CFL news, and sprinkle in a little bit of nonsense.
Oh, nearly intercepted, and it's over!
Ready, set, hunt!
And we are part of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community supported. It's Travis Currah and Brazilian Ty. Ty, are you all in on the pumpkin spice craze?
What's that?
I knew it. I did read that there was a company in the States that came out with a pumpkin spice lager, which sounds pretty vile to me. But we will start the show also by saying that you've got a groundbreaking stat on the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
It's the first time in a month they didn't lose a football game.
Something to celebrate in the Hammer.
And I'm also pretty sure that Calgary outscored the Elks at home for like the entire season so far. Like, I'm not saying that to be...
no, it's true.
I think it's true.
It actually is true. We'll get to
That's
that
hilarious.
stat. Danny Austin of the Calgary Sun and Herald, I believe, posted that after the Battle of Alberta rematch from Saturday night. With Pod Power, our sponsors are making it possible for us to amplify the voices of Albertans and Alberta podcasters. And this episode, the Edmonton Community Foundation is helping us give a Pod Power shout out to Overdue Fines. It is an Edmonton Public Library podcast. Bryce Crittenden and Carolyn Land host conversations about books, movies, music, pop culture, and other interesting news about Edmonton. It's a great way to learn about what's happening at EPL and about how you can use your library card to access all of EPL's in-person and online services. To listen and find out more about Overdue Fines, head to epl.ca/podcast. All right, the first game of the week had the Montreal Alouettes beating the BC Lions 31-10. There was some slight hype in this game with Vernon Adams Jr. making his BC Lions debut, but he didn't start the game. He only played for 3 series. And Ty, I think this really goes to show that trades in the middle of the football season, they can really either just not pay off altogether or take a while to really pay off.
Yeah, especially when it comes to quarterback, I think that's a whole different animal than, trading for an O-lineman or a safety or something like that. Guys where, I saw it in high school, corners never were in the defensive huddle. You just played man on the outside, and everybody else came into the plate, but they always played man on the outside.
Well, we saw it in Montreal. They had their Thomas Costigan and Nafis Lyon. They came in, they made an impact basically right away.
But there's just so much to learn. Playbook, the lingo that your new OC and your new head coach use. It could be the same route, same concept, different ways that they approach it, and different ways that they talk about it. When you make a trade, especially for a quarterback, it's usually not for a starter.
Yeah,
you're not trading to throw a guy in to start unless injuries have absolutely ravaged your team. But it's going to take time for the adjustment. It's usually for depth, like we saw Trevor Harris going to Montreal, stuff like that. And after he gets accustomed and stuff to the playbook and the offense, then he starts getting more looks.
But
Vernon Adams wasn't doing much when he got traded. Before he got traded, he wasn't playing very well. So I don't know what anybody expected with that team traveling across the country.
BC coming into this one winning 5 of their last 6 trips to Montreal. So they did have some success there as of late, but this is also part of the reason why Nathan Rourke had some success right off the bat, because last week Michael Riley wasn't healthy. Who was getting all the reps in practice? It was Rourke. And then this season, who's getting all the reps in practice behind Rourke? It's Michael O'Connor. Now he's hurt. Pipkin's hardly getting any reps. Adams had a week of reps.
Pipkin is basically Dakota Prukop.
Yeah. There was no reps for really either of these quarterbacks, and they went to Montreal and they really got smashed. And this win is on the Als defense, because if you if you look at the game, the Montreal offense, they were average, but they were
this much better than BC's.
And they were working with short fields all game.
Yeah.
So that goes to show that BC's special teams is a point of struggle. And I know Rourke's not there. I know TJ Lee is not there on the defense, but it just seemed like, and I know there's only been 2 games without Rourke, and people are going to get they're already tired of TSN talking about it. They're going to get tired of me talking about it. But
I never will.
Losing him, it seems like it's just changed the makeup of the entire team.
100%. The way that he started this season, the way that offense was going, throwing for 350, 400 yards, it seemed at will on a weekly basis. We talk about quarterbacks, goaltending, and defensemen in the NHL. So if you have 2 number ones, you don't have a number one. Right now, you're just creating Montreal. BC doesn't have a number one. They've got 2 2s and a 3.
Yeah.
Right now, Rourke going down, they were not prepared.
Did he cover up a lot of issues though?
I think so, but at the same time, he was the one getting all the reps. He's the one that was running the offense. You throw Michael O'Connor in there, you basically throw him to the Wolves on 1 week of practice with the number 1 team. So there is going to be an adjustment time for that, but when you don't have and it's hard, it'd be easier with Rourke to have that depth behind because of the pay structure that you would have with the rookie quarterback, or not. Well, quarterback on his rookie contract still, and he goes down, and there was just no backup plan for it. And O'Connor comes in, they trade for Adams, and they still don't have it figured out. They have a bit of a cushion.
I know that's their one saving grace.
That's the saving grace right now, is that Saskatchewan and Edmonton are awful, and BC's going to make the playoffs without their starting quarterback.
Now, I did see Nick Lewis tweeting it. Was Rourke so good that he was able to cover up some issues in the scheme? I mean,
he's Curtis Joseph with the Oilers.
And he also covered up issues with the special teams. They were able to work with long fields, and it wasn't really an issue. And I know the return game was okay in this one. Terry Williams making his BC Lions debut, but in the first quarter, they give up the 51-yard return to Worthy. And I think that was the drive where Geno Lewis throws the interception in the end zone. Yes, Geno Lewis. And then
that helped Trevor Harris' stat line, because he would have 2.
Yeah. So then BC can't do anything on the next drive and shank a punt from their own end zone. There's no good place to shank a punt, but from your own end zone.
Yeah.
Just
if you're going to shank when you want to be at the other team's 20.
Yeah.
And you can't kick a field goal for some reason.
Exactly.
You shank it at the 1.
But Dom Davis of the Montreal Alouettes, the first player to score 10 TDs this year, just like we all thought it would go.
The only reason is because of scheduling. Am I wrong?
Well, it's the backup quarterbacks and the rushing TDs.
But didn't somebody else score their 10th?
Caleb
on
Evans
Saturday
did.
Afternoon, and then on Saturday afternoon as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it just happened to play first.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's a backup quarterback is hilarious.
The turnovers didn't help the Lions. 1 interception thrown, 3 lost fumbles from the Lions. But you know what? Early in the season, sneaky good rushing defense, and they were able to limit teams. But then a few weeks ago, Frankie Hickson had a 100-yard game against them. And then in this one, Walter Fletcher, he had 14 carries for 79 yards. Jeshrin Antwi had 7 carries for 41 yards, including a 31-yard rush. The Owls are starting to have some success running the ball with the 2 running backs, and William Stanback, he's on the verge. It looks like maybe he'll be
Colin Ray.
Maybe he'll be able to make his return to the Lions lineup or the Owls lineup, but they had success running, and that's starting to become a problem for the the Lions defense. I keep screwing this up.
I mean, it's starting to sound like a broken record. Like the Lions defense the last 3 years against the run has been, I don't know if suspect is even the word to use. Like it might be worse than that.
Well, and I think one of the surprises of this season has been Matthew Betts. He's been having a lot of success on the D-line for the Lions after a couple, I think, disappointing starting years to his career in Montreal or Edmonton. What is wrong with me today? See, not enough coffee. The caffeine really hasn't taken effect yet. Yes, I did sleep until 3:45 on Sunday afternoon.
I texted the group chat at 9:00 this morning asking what the over-under would be that when I would get a reply from you, and I said it at 1:15 Pacific, and I didn't get one until like 3:00.
Yeah, well, closer to 4.
Mountain.
Oh, okay, Mountain.
Yeah.
But,
embarrassing.
Hey, look, he's had a good season with BC so far. Jordan Williams, the linebacker, had 11 tackles in this one, but not soon enough for that BC Lions rush defense.
Yeah, and I mean, Montreal rushed 21 times. So you're going to see a linebacker get some tackles, like if the defensive line can't make those stops. But it was nice to see Montreal kind of commit to a run game, even though they were running that 2-back system. But if BC can't get that sorted out, we're getting into that time of year where teams are going to be running a lot more because of the weather, because of conditions. It's late season football. Yeah. That's going to be something that they're going to have to fix right away. I don't see them beating Calgary as it is anyways, but you don't want to go into Calgary for the West Semi and get embarrassed. You want this year to be kind of a building block into next year where you can make a significant step.
5 penalties for 42 yards for the Montreal Alouettes, which
the Riders would take that 8 days a week.
That is a big change for Montreal. If they're not, self-destructing all over the place with these poorly timed penalties, that they're a pretty decent team. And if they're able to get pressure on the quarterback, which has been uneven, it hasn't been consistent. They were able to do it against Winnipeg, not able to do it against Ottawa, able to do it against BC. That has to be, and it looks like the formula for success for the Alouettes. And maybe the fact that Gary Stern's back on Twitter doesn't hurt either.
I think that's the only thing that matters right now.
Yeah, he goes away, they lose, he comes back, they win. I mean, if that's not a trend, what is? I figured it out.
Yeah, I mean, who needs a GM? Just get Gary Stern on Twitter. It doesn't matter.
But is it not overreaction theater in the Eastern Division? Like Montreal's on this.
It is only because you overreact because you have to look at the standings and be like, we're not really out of this at all. Like, I don't know why we're worried.
Because Montreal wins the 2 games, and then they lose to Ottawa, and then it's like, okay, well, now Montreal's done. And then they go beat BC pretty handily.
Yeah, Montreal's done. They're a game back. Like, give me a break.
So, look, there's only about a third of the season left. Nobody's done in the East Division. This is going to be a remarkable finish to the season.
There's one team that's done.
There you go. On that game, BC has a decent drive to start, and then just when they started getting some momentum in the third, it was all over from there. If you look at the stats, it just really wasn't a pretty game. Antonio Pipkin, 13 of 24 with a pick, 174 yards. But that James Butler, Antonio Pipkin having more carries than your starting running back, that's not formula for success either.
Yeah, and I mean, that kind of points to offensive line play a little bit too if they're not designed runs.
Yeah. Where
he's getting flushed. You talk about the stat lines, Antonio Pipkin outscored Trevor Harris fantasy-wise still, which is crazy. It's nuts.
He might, off the top of my head, is he the 3rd highest scoring quarterback this week?
Good God, I hope not.
We'll get to that point later in the
I'll-
show.
I have it all ready to go when we get
Brian Burnham, 4 catches for 40 yards. Man, I so wanted that touchdown to stand off the defender's hands, but it is what it is. Lucky Whitehead, 3 for 29. Keon Hatcher, the leading receiver for the Lions, 3 for 72. And if you look to Montreal, I mean, the running backs kind of stole the show. Trevor Harris, 16 to 23, 163, a touchdown and a pick. The completion percentage, 69.6%.
Nice.
Leading receiver.
I'm not rounding up.
Leading receiver was Reggie White Jr. Would have had a bigger game if he didn't let that touchdown pass hit the turf. And Geno Lewis, 3 for 42 and a touchdown. So not really much happening on offense, despite putting up 31 points.
For anybody. You look at this stat sheet and it's like, I'm kind of glad I was working. And had to listen because I don't know if I could have watched that.
The Toronto Argonauts beat the Ottawa RedBlacks 24-19 in the first third of the triple header. Man, it started good for Toronto.
This is the game of the week.
It really started good for them. They had that 11-play, 95-yard drive that ate 5 minutes off the clock. Ottawa had no answers at all. Nick Arbuckle was not looking good. He was he threw an interception early in the game, and it just seemed like every opportunity that Toronto had to put it away, they just couldn't do it. And they had chances.
That's McLeod Bethel Thompson. That's this offense right now.
He threw for 365 yards.
But just all Swedish. But we talk about how he gets screwed around by this franchise. Like released, re-signed, released, re-signed, doesn't get the starting role, gets the starting gig, but it's only for 2 weeks. At some point, these games are going to catch him, and they're not going to be able to pull it out. But the defense is, if you keep a team under 20 points, you should be winning that game regardless of what your offense does. I shouldn't say with that. If you're holding them to under 20 points, you're giving your offense a chance. But you keep passing up options, and that's going to catch up to you at some point, sooner rather than later, usually.
It is now a 3-game winning streak for the Toronto Argonauts. And
Lou Brown, that's a streak. Yep.
Brandon Danbridge making his return to Ottawa after a training camp in the NFL. And it looked like the game plan here was for Toronto to pick on him a little bit. He did have a big hit early on Devaris Daniels, knocked his helmet off his head, but they looked like they were targeting Brandon Banks in his area. Banks had 6 catches for 49 yards. Curly Gittins, a career game, 8 catches, 161 yards, and a touchdown. Brandon Danbridge, the defensive back, with 10 tackles. Whenever your DB's making double-digit tackles, they're probably getting picked on.
Yeah, they're giving up a lot of catches.
Yeah,
because you don't want to see the tackles high. You want to see the pass knockdowns high.
Yeah. So that,
or you could be like Jalen Ramsey and open up your mouth and say Josh Allen's no good, and your completion percentage for that week is 100% against you. That's always fun. On national television.
So that was a strategy that worked out for Toronto, but I did notice momentum kind of started to shift in the first half when their left tackle DeJon Allen, defensive end Shane Ray, linebacker needs no introduction, Enoch Mwamba went down due to injury. And at the half, Toronto, to me, I thought they should have had a lot bigger lead than they did, but it was only 13-6, and they were right in this game. And the game almost took a turn at the end of the half when Boris Beatty misses the long field goal, and Mr. Devontae Dedman almost had a nice return at the end of the half. If that goes through, Toronto doesn't win the game.
Yeah.
Obviously.
I mean, we talk about Saskatchewan not making adjustments and stuff like that. Like Brian Dinwiddie this year, the way that his team has somehow not lost more football games than they've won is astounding.
Well, they won 3 out of 4 with Hamilton, so that helps.
I mean, yeah, that's huge.
I'm just spitting facts, Hamilton.
and not hard.
I know Hamilton's coming at you, but I
wouldn't say Hamilton.
Oh, okay. I don't want the Ticats fans to not like me. I'm your friend, okay?
Oh, you're guilty by association. Who are you kidding? It's like junior high, because I was your friend. I was always guilty too.
That's true. In the second half, it was all Ottawa. It was like they just kind of ran out of time. If they would have had a better first half, they win this game. Nick Arbuckle led an 11-play, 98-yard drive late in the game, takes the intentional grounding on 2nd and 7.
So that is so Nick Arbuckle. It's not funny.
And then it's 3rd and 14. He goes for the run for the first down. It's a 12-yard run, 2 yards short. They end up getting the ball back, but just over a minute left. The pass hits Shaq Johnson in the hands on 3rd and 14.
It's the worst spot to get hit with a ball.
It falls incomplete. So Ottawa had every opportunity to win this one, and these two teams are going to play again. There is a bye week here for Toronto, and then they're going to go back to Ottawa. Just a bizarre schedule.
I told you at the start of the year, this schedule is the worst we've ever seen.
Like, I know that the back-to-backs are getting annoying for someone, but when one team has a bye and they come back and play the same team, and in the middle of it, well, Ottawa
Toronto
does have a bye
hasn't
too,
had to leave Ontario in 7 weeks.
Wow. Talk about saving travel costs. And allegedly that was part of the strategy for the schedule, but tell BC that they got to travel probably more than anyone. So
yeah,
the Ontario teams, I think the East teams probably already have the easy travel schedules anyway.
100%. You play the majority of your games inside your division as it is.
Yeah.
I mean, if Toronto has 2 home games and they got to play Ottawa and Hamilton, I mean, there's 4 weeks of basically sleeping in your own bed.
Mm-hmm.
Because you really need to travel to Ottawa the night before, or Hamilton the night. Like, Hamilton's basically Toronto anyway.
Yeah. Ooh. Wow.
Well, it just means it's close. Toronto's way nicer.
Oh! Yeah, you're on your own, brother.
I can't wait to wake up tomorrow with 8 text messages all in caps.
I should say, Ottawa does have a bye here as well, and they did have some success running the ball, which was good to see. They gave Devontae Williams the ball 14 times. He had 5.7 yards a carry. He had 6 catches for 30 yards. He was in my fantasy lineup. I had a pretty decent day, just under 90 points. I would have liked to have seen a touchdown from Nick Arbuckle. That would have made my day a little bit better. But 26 of 40, 290 yards, and an interception. It is better than what Ottawa was seeing a couple weeks ago with Caleb Evans, but early on it was looking pretty rough. And maybe that's just the curse of TD Place. 20 of the last 21 home games Ottawa has lost.
Like, can they petition the league to just play all 18 games on the road?
I think they would be okay with giving up a game next year and playing it in Moncton or Halifax or
100%.
Edmonton's probably at the point where they want to play a game in Red Deer just to see if
man, go play the Central Alberta Buccaneers and see what happens.
Might as well. That'll be the pre-practice squad for Chris Jones and company. Let's talk about the Banjo Bowl.
Like, these last 2 games are an absolute joke.
Can I ask when we all collectively decided to be offended by the term Banjo Bowl? I'm a Rider fan.
SAWFT.
I'm a Rider fan. I am not offended by the term. In fact, I think we need more games on the schedule that have some sort of organic, growth to them. I have heard that the front office in Saskatchewan has complained to the league about this, which is also soft. It's just fun. And I know what Westwood said. I get it. Banjo picking inbreds. Whatever. It's over. And now we've got something on the schedule that means just as much to Winnipeg fans as Labor Day does to Saskatchewan and Winnipeg fans. Like, come on. The highlight of the game, though, and I saw people getting annoyed by this. I will say
it's just SJWs crying and bitching for the sake of being heard. Like this, like to hear their own voice.
Although I've seen some of those people complaining about Banjo Bowl. I'll leave that one alone. Some of the stuff that they complain about is like, whoa. Sarah Orlesky stole the show. We're going to miss Sarah Orlesky on the sideline. I also saw people complaining, saying that was too much. I thought it was a classy send-off by TSN.
Now I have to watch Jets games.
just to see Sarah doing what she does best. I mean, hard worker, humble, loves the league, and just to see the way that the players showed appreciation to what Zach did for her at the end, giving her the game ball. Man, that was so cool. I just know after spending some time on CFL Twitter, there are two jobs I don't want regarding the CFL. That's probably a play-by-play commentator and an official. I don't want those jobs. Because I have a soft skin and I do go on Twitter, and I'm man enough to admit that I cannot take criticism like that.
Yeah, you don't want to be in the command center.
Nope. This is hard enough.
Yeah. I make it hard for you, let's be honest. It's my fault.
The Bombers win 54-20. Now, what's remarkable is that Fajardo did not have a bad game here. He didn't. In fact, the Bombers did not punt the ball until 2:40 left in the game.
Travis, how can you say he didn't have a bad game when he threw for 124 yards?
He didn't have a bad game, and I will die on that hill. 15 of 18 for 124 yards. He didn't have the ball. Like,
that's fair.
When the first drive of the game, Winnipeg goes 10 plays, 73 yards, and then it's 6-0. Then the very next drive, Cody Fajardo, he has a 4-yard run. Frankie Hickson has a 3-yard run. Then they're punting. So he hasn't thrown a pass yet. And then the next drive, Winnipeg goes on a 13-play, 97-yard touchdown drive that eats 7 minutes off the clock.
They're so good. It's disgusting.
So then Cody Fajardo leads them on a touchdown drive. It's 13-7. But then, look at this. Another touchdown drive from Winnipeg. Like, and then
look at Winnipeg's drive chart.
I know, it's insane.
There's one drive where they didn't score points.
And then the very next drive, the Rider offense is rolling again. 3rd and 1. Fajardo hits Kyron Moore in the hands and he drops it. I don't think there was anything more he could have done. And I know the circumstances surrounding the game. This is by far the worst Rough Rider defensive performance we've seen probably since before Chris Jones was on the team. They couldn't do anything. And I know that half the team was sick, half of the team was probably having diarrhea, half of the team was puking.
Were they in camp?
I read that the entire offensive line was on IVs before.
So what's the offensive line's excuse for the other 13 weeks of the season?
Well, they did well in the first half. Okay.
Yeah. And if you're battling food poisoning or a stomach bug, you're going to gas out.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing. Like I'm the players showing up morning of the game, trying to get to Winnipeg, like in the shape they were in. Like, I will say, like in that situation, the Riders Like that is something that you can look at and be like, okay, well, this team is they want to be there. You know, they're a team. They're playing for each other. They're showing up, but they're just outmatched.
Well, and that's it. In the first half, I thought that the offense did what they could. There was they didn't have many opportunities. That you brought up Winnipeg's drive chart. They had 10 drives. One of them ended in a punt, and that was in the fourth quarter.
And they got to the red zone 7 times.
Yeah. The first 4 drives were touchdowns, then a field goal, touchdown, punt, touchdown.
Winnipeg's averaging half a punt per game against the Riders this year.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. I just think that
hard to get Mary Alford involved.
Yeah. Look, I know that the circumstances surrounding the game, I wouldn't be able to record the show feeling like how some of the players were feeling. The Riders had the ball for 24 minutes. But I mean, if the reports
almost scored a point per minute.
If the reports are true and that the offensive linemen were actually like getting fluids via IV before going on the field, I mean, that is to me pretty remarkable.
That's the opposite of what Edmonton has right now, it seems.
Yeah, and I don't have any reason to doubt what was happening there. I read that the president, this is wild, Craig Reynolds, drove 2 players to the game from Regina, got them there 9 minutes after kickoff. Blaze Brown got into the game. All he did was have 2 breakfast sandwiches in the car. He stretched and he was on the field playing. So,
what is this, a slow pitch tournament?
Stretched. I did not stretch for slow pitch.
I had to stretch getting out of the vehicle. So
oh, yeah.
Back seized up.
So, I mean, that's the Bombers went out there and they still had to execute. That's all it was.
Well, and Jefferson said it after the game. When you're playing Saskatchewan, this is a team that shows up, and you know you have to perform. You have to do your job and be there and be ready. And he said it was a team win. Yeah, they blew them out. But I mean, if they're not clicking Saskatchewan. Like,
they could have stole it. They could have.
We saw it last week. They only lost by 2.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the half, Mario Alford returns one to the house, and they've got at least a little bit of a spark. But when your defense is on the field the entire time, to me, it looked like they could have used Garrett Marino. I'm just kidding. But up the middle, it was
You're such a piece of.
It was not a strong point for the Rough Rider. Well, nowhere was really a strong point for the Rough Rider defense in the Banjo Bowl, but it's just one of those games.
Yeah, they were missing Marino because at least they would have had a chance to knock Collaros out of the game. So there's only one person left on this team that has to go, right?
Ooh,
the fans already got one. Yeah. The fans already got one. Maybe the voices are loud enough to get 2. I will drive that bandwagon right into the middle of the field. Who's with me?
Frankie Hickson had 7.1 yards a carry. Kyron Moore was 6 of 9 for 56 yards. Jake Hardy, 4 catches, 32 yards. They did what they could, and I mean, I would have been crapping my pants out on the field there. And you look at Winnipeg, just everyone had a beautiful game.
Can we talk about how all 3 of Winnipeg's quarterbacks were positive fantasy points this week?
Has that been done?
I would venture to say no.
Because Drew Brown has a passing TD. Prukop has 2 rushing TDs. Zach Collaros has 4 passing TDs. I could have picked probably any of those quarterbacks and been better than my Nick Arbuckle pick. That's pretty wild.
That's false, but okay.
How many points did Prukop have?
Well, Prukop had more points than Nick Arbuckle, yes. Drew Brown did not.
Okay, well,
still
2 out of 3 having better points than
you could have picked
Arbuckle.
Tommy Stevens.
Yeah, I could have done okay with him too. Brady Oliveira, 10 for 55 on the ground. Nick Dembski, and that guy might be one of the hottest players in the Canadian Football League right now. 7 catches, 71 yards, 2 touchdowns for Nick Dembski. He is having a beautiful stretch of football right now.
And they added 2 carries, getting him involved any way they can in this offense. He's kind of a Swiss Army knife right now for that team. And it's not like there's a big hole to fill on offense for them. Like, yes, Greg Ellenson isn't there, but Greg Ellenson was an add-on.
Yeah.
They already had Rasheed Bailey. They had Nick Dembski. They had Drew Wolodarski. Dalton Schoen has shown up and shown out. Like, the fact that Nick Dembski's still putting up these numbers with that complement of receivers that they have is just wild.
The last 6 games for Nick Dembski, that is 6 receiving touchdowns. August 25th against Calgary, he has 8 catches for 117 yards and a touchdown. Labor Day against Saskatchewan, 5 catches, 79 yards and a touchdown. Banjo Bowl, 2 receiving touchdowns. So a nice
Is that any
stretch.
good?
It's pretty okay for Nick Dembski and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And you did bring up Rasheed Bailey, 5 catches, 83 yards, and a touchdown. That was the biggest game for him of the season. And what a halftime interview he had with Sarah Orleski. I think there was a lot of pressure on Bailey coming into the season. I think there was a lot of expectations on him coming into the season. And hey, we're after Labor Day now. We had an amazing effort on that 34-yard touchdown, just barely touching the pylon in the corner. That was awesome.
I really thought with the way that the last 2 seasons had gone for Bailey, where, later on in the year, they would start kind of, I wouldn't say they would start involving more. He got more chances, or was capitalizing on his chances. I really thought this year was going to be kind of a breakout year where he'd be consistently, not necessarily every week being their leading receiver, but 6,
number
7,
1,
8
number
weeks,
2 target,
kind of thing, and it just hasn't panned out. And his passport helps for sure, but like I had such high expectations, like just in general for him, like. I really expected, kind of like 1,000, maybe not 1,000 yards, but like 700 yards and 5, 6, 7 TDs.
Not to fact check you, but Rasheed Bailey.
He's American.
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Why do I always think he's Canadian?
Maybe Wolodarski you were thinking of.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
He did have to leave this game, 1 catch, 9 yards, and it was fine with him on the sideline. Nobody. They probably could have put the entire backups, because even Brendan O'Leary Orange gets a touchdown, and of course Dalton Schoen gets a touchdown. But there you go. The Bombers came out, executed, and dominated the Riders. I think one bright spot that the Riders had was Cooper Richardson at right tackle, and he was making Willie pretty mad early in the game. He was getting mad and going to the refs. You got to call this guy, and he played, I thought, a pretty good game. And once they got Jamal Campbell in there, I think they had to shuffle the offensive line because maybe some guys were struggling with the flu or whatever they had going on. Then the D-line was really taken over again. But early on, Cooper Richardson, I think, a bright spot at right tackle, and maybe they have something there going forward, because I've thought over the past few weeks the offensive line hasn't been the glaring weakness it was early on in the season.
I think when Cody was healthy, anything that was wrong with the offensive line could be hidden. Well, he hasn't been healthy for 2 years.
And now I'm thinking, the last few games he's played pretty good. On Labor Day he did, the Banjo Bowl he did what he could.
You give up 2 sacks to Willie Jefferson, that's a win.
And I think it just goes to show he shouldn't have been playing during that stretch when they were hurt. Clearly he wasn't he wasn't able to do what we've come accustomed to, and he hasn't been terrible over the past few weeks, so we'll see. They got Edmonton coming up, and 56-28, the Calgary Stampeders
Doubled up.
stomp the Edmonton Elks. And yeah, Danny Austin saying that in 2 games at Commonwealth Stadium, the Calgary Stampeders have 105 points. In 6 games at Commonwealth Stadium this season, the Edmonton Elks have 101 points. And we've seen this before with Edmonton. They actually, in both games at McMahon Stadium this season, they gave Calgary some trouble. Labor Day, they gave them trouble. And then you come home and that happens. That's embarrassing. They have tied a record home losing streak, 14 games in a row at Commonwealth Stadium. It used to be such a tough place to play. Now it's just tough for the home team to play at Commonwealth Stadium. Remarkably bad stretch.
And, you know, when you talk about the Elks and Commonwealth Stadium, and, you know, once an Eskimo was an Eskimo back in, like, you know, 70s, 80s, 90s, all of the names on that wall of honor, the 5 Grey Cups in a row, the Ricky Ray years, all that stuff, it just seems like it's come down, or like hurtling back to earth, coming to the ozone on fire. It's just 2 straight years of this. It's just a shame that Terry Jones isn't covering the team and he has to sit through this anymore.
Well, I think the most frustrating part is that this is
everybody wanted change and they got it, and it just hasn't panned out.
This is maybe the game that we expected to see Labor Day. Mm-hmm. Like, this is something that you do on the road.
Yeah.
To do that in front of your fans.
And I don't know why we're surprised, because they've been so bad at home. I don't know what we expected to change.
Well, and we expected this from a year 1 Chris Jones team. It happened in Saskatchewan. And I'll never forget how I felt.
4 wins?
Yeah. Going into that last game at Taylor Field. And I'm thinking, we got to do something. Let Durant play. And then he pulls Durant. And it's the last game at Taylor Field. I know there's no playoffs, but Jones does not care about that. It is evaluation for next week. It is evaluation for next season. But the effort level and the stupid mistakes.
Jones was not happy post game.
2 time counts. Like, is this a Saskatchewan impression? On your home turf, 2 time count penalties in the first half. But I really do believe that pass interference call on Ed Gainey
was a joke.
And
an absolute joke.
I think that changed the course of the rest of the game. That is one of the worst calls I've ever seen in any level of sport.
I don't know. Mick Magoo's hand pass is pretty bad.
But then Ed Gainey, like, I went back home and watched it.
Ed Gainey's going to get fined. Which is an absolute joke as well.
That was incredible. I'm sorry. When he, right to the camera, like, I work hard for my money. I work hard for this name on the jersey. And now you're messing with me.
Good for him.
I agree. Good for Ed Gainey for saying that, because, and I went back and watched it, and I think I've seen some fans say that maybe it should have been illegal contact. Before the receiver falls over, there is a tug on the jersey, but that's before the throw. So maybe it's illegal contact and a 10-yard penalty instead of giving Calgary the ball at the one. But explain it.
Yeah.
Don't just have Chris Jones meet with the officials and then just say, after receiving more information, Chris Jones has withdrew his challenge. Well, we don't have the information. Give us the information.
The system's broke. You can't trust the review process in this league right now. You can't trust the officiating on the field to even get it right. You look at that Rider game, the holding penalties, and like, it's frustrating to watch. It takes a lot of flow out of the game. calls like that are infuriating no matter what side you're on. Like, yeah, I'm sure Stamps fans love it. I mean, give them great field position. But if that goes the other way, like, you have to look at it that way, that if that's the precedent they're going to set, you have to expect that to be called on every play now. But that's the thing. They set a precedent in the first quarter with these pass interference calls and the illegal contacts and the holdings on the offensive line. By the fourth quarter, those are gone. And it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
There's no consistency with it. There's no consistency in the same game, let alone from game to game. The command center is an absolute dumpster fire. The on-field officiating is infuriating. Like, I'm just done. I just don't understand how the league does nothing. I get that it's the middle of the season. You can't start firing officials because you don't have anybody to replace them. And these guys all have second jobs because they can't afford not to. That's a big issue.
What
and
I don't
the only way to fix it is to pay them more, but where does that money come from?
The league can step in and they fixed an unnecessary roughness unnecessary roughness call on Cody Fajardo, and they stepped in and they picked the flag up off the field. Why couldn't they fix this? It's just so
it's like
egregious.
In baseball. That's not a reviewable play, but if it happened a little different, it would be.
I know.
You know what I mean? Like, what's the point of having a review? Either make everything reviewable or make nothing reviewable. I'm done.
I saw it happen. Like, change it to illegal contact. Fine.
Yeah.
I honestly believe that took the wind out of Edmonton's sails. The boos I heard coming from the stands was maybe the loudest I've heard that stadium. And just before then, they had some momentum. Peyton Logan fumbling a punt, and then the touchdown to the pride of Lacombe, Tanner Green, the fullback. And then the very
Central
next
Alberta
drive.
Buccaneer alumni. Alumnus,
I think. And then the very next drive is that pass interference on Ed Gainey. Yep. And I honestly couldn't believe what I was watching when Ed Gainey walked up to the camera and they let him say that. That's great TV. I would like to see that on every play.
Whoever was directing in the truck just won a Juno.
Yeah.
Or should.
That's a Canadian Screen Award right there.
That's a heritage moment. If the rules change, that's a heritage moment.
It is. And I mean, what else can you say about this game? The stamps stamped all over Edmonton. Former Edmonton Elk, Trumaine Washington, with a pick six. And the Elks special teams was just, and it's been a mess.
Since 2012?
For a long, long time. And I know they're starting to maybe get some nice returns here and there, but it is what it. Taylor Cornelius, 23 of 32, 292 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. There were at times when Calgary's D-line was all over him, but there were other moments where he had so much time back there, and it did appear to me that the Stamps DBs were on Edmonton's receivers like a blanket. So there was
coverage, like coverage sacks, coverage pressure, like it's.
So, I mean, as far as bright spots for Edmonton, I do think maybe they now have
they had under 100 yards, then they had under 100 yards in penalties.
I guess, yeah, there's one. I think they got a pretty good running back in Kevin Brown, who had
that way.
Pretty decent game on Labor Day, and here he had over 9 yards a carry, 10 carries for 91 yards. He had 4 catches for 15 yards, and I think they've got something in Dylan Mitchell as well. 5 catches on 10 targets for 120 yards. He was 2,500 in CFL Fantasy. I had him in my flex. I'm pretty happy about that. And you see Darrell Walker, 7 catches for 100 yards. That has to be his first 100-yard game in a while.
Darrell Walker.
Might not be since he was in Toronto off the top of my head, but as you look that up, Jake Mayer, 20 of 26, 287 yards and a touchdown. But Kadeem Carey, 9 carries, 118 yards, and that touchdown at the end of the game. And it has been a point of struggle at times, I think, for Edmonton. The tackling on the defense. Jones isn't going to put up with that for very long, and it's just tough when you're trying to rebuild the business. I get that, but I saw it in Saskatchewan. Jones doesn't care. He doesn't care how many people are in the stands. He wants to put the proper combination together to have success on the field, and I truly believe it'll start paying off probably next year.
Yeah.
The rest of this season is lost, but the question is, will the Elks have a home win this year?
No. And the other question is, who wants to be there right now?
I know.
Who are the guys? Ed Gainey doing that shows me he wants to play. He's still showing up.
Yeah.
There's guys that have thrown in the towel, for sure.
Yeah, I think so.
And it'd be hard not to. I don't blame them. I'd be in the same boat, I think. Like, it's tough to show up and get your ass handed to you week in and week out, especially at home every time. But Jones said he's got to figure out who wants to be here, who wants to play, and stuff like that. Because if they don't want to be here, changes are coming. Well, that's a moot point because all you've done this year is make changes. But I don't think this is going to be the last week of us being surprised by a cut in Edmonton. I think more definitely coming.
Say what you want about Chris Jones. I think he holds people accountable, though.
Mm-hmm.
If there are egregious mistakes or the effort level isn't there, you're shown the door. The 3 home games remaining for Edmonton: Montreal, Toronto, BC.
BC maybe.
BC might. Well, we'll see. That's the
Depends
last
on
game of
if
the
Vernon
season.
Adams gets it together.
And they might be
or
pretty.
O'Connor gets it together.
They might be desperate for a win. You don't know.
Maybe Rourke's back.
Maybe. And that Trevor Harris coming back to Montreal, we'll see what kind of game he has.
Coming back to Edmonton.
On October 1st.
We've made some mistakes today.
Oh well.
And
then
nothing new.
The other 2 games are in Saskatchewan, in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
For the Edmonton Elks.
Those Saskatchewan games are real important.
That's a fascinating game. Hopefully this flu, food poisoning, or whatever it is that the Riders have is gone by the time they play.
Take some Imodium. Let's go.
This episode of Two and Out is brought to you by Alberta Blue Cross. Even if you're a busy business owner with more meetings than hours in a day, you're calm and collected when your group benefit plan is taken care of by Alberta Blue Cross. Your employees can manage their own health, dental, life, and disability coverage online anytime and on any device, making it easier for them and for you. To learn more and explore your options, head to ab.bluecross.ca. All right, Ty, you got the fantasy numbers crunched for this week. It seems like sort of a bizarre week. We both had wins in the CFL Podcast Fantasy League. I beat the Argos Fancast. You beat Oz Davis, and you only picked from the Banjo Bowl and the Battle of Alberta game.
So it was Saturday afternoon, listening to the Rider game on the radio, kickoff. I'm like, I don't remember setting a lineup this week. So I checked because I was lucky enough to be in service, and I did not have a lineup set. So I only had 1 game left.
Oh, you only had 1 game?
I only had 1 game left to pick from, and it worked out.
Did you go all Calgary, or did you have a few
Edmonton? No, I had a few Edmonton because I couldn't pull a Ryan. I don't think I'm allowed to do that. I did have Kevin Brown, and that was my only Elk.
Oh, okay. Man, my Geno Lewis and Jalen Ackland picks, 22.4 combined. I would have liked my highest scoring player, Devontae Williams and Dylan Mitchell, tied at 17. AJ Ouellette had 15.5. Nick Arbuckle 10.8 in the RedBlacks defense.
How high was your highest scoring player?
17.
My defense got 15.
Stamps defense 15.
Yeah.
Well, and that's another thing from that game. 2 games, 2 blocked punts.
A sack, an interception, a fumble, a touchdown, and a safety. They basically pulled the Mario Lemieux.
Who were the best fantasy players this week?
Again, Zach Claros. this is getting stupid. 26.9, along with Tommy Stevens. Like, but okay, four rushing touchdowns for Tommy Stevens. He had in the yards and everything. Taylor Cornelius still at 24.8, which I was looking at that and it just doesn't make any sense to me. But then, 287 yards, no picks.
Yeah.
292 yards, 1 pick and 2 touchdowns. So it kind of does, I guess, make somewhat sense, but it's the way they got pumped didn't make a lot of sense. So Cloud Bethel Thompson, 17.7. Jake Mayer, who started for the Stamps, is 5th behind his own backup.
And Cornelius did have the 1 rushing TD too. So.
Yeah. And then Prukop, Fajardo, Pipkin, then Arbuckle, then Harrison, Dom Davis back-to-back, and then Caleb Evans is tied with Dom Davis, and Drew Brown is right behind them.
I'm
the quarterbacks was an absolute crapshoot this
one
week.
of these weeks I'm picking Davis. I'm just gonna let it go.
I think you're better off picking Tommy Stevens.
Maybe. Yeah.
Running back wise, Kadeem Carey, Devontae Williams, AJ Ouellette. I think you mentioned that he was the first running back touchdown.
Oh yeah,
Toronto this year.
First running back touchdown for the Argos this season comes in week 14.
Have Andrew Harris had. I went through all, I guess, 5 running backs that they've had in games this year. And I'm like, there's no way this is true. That's true.
Oh yeah.
Kevin Brown in 4th, Frankie Hickson in 5th. Tanner Green with that touchdown got into the top 10 as well.
Nice.
Curly Gittins Jr. led the way receiver-wise, 30.1. Nick Dembski, 27.1. Malik Henry, 22.8. Rashid at 19.3. And then Darrell Walker and Dylan Mitchell both had 17. And throw in Dalton Schoen with another 16.3 points and another touchdown this week. It's crazy.
And Mr. Reggie Bagleton, 16.2. So
right behind. He's in 8th and Schoen's in 7th.
Yeah, you could have went all Stamps. If you could start 2
I almost
QBs. The old Tommy Stevens getting 26.9.
Imagine the lineup I could have had.
Fantasy's the biggest crapshoot this year more than ever, isn't it? Especially at quarterback and running back. Like,
I don't know what to do at running back anymore.
I don't know.
I'm taking Peyton Logan because he gets returns.
Pick the cheap guys. That's hope you get lucky.
Kevin Brown ain't going to be cheap next week.
No, that's true. His price is starting to go up as well. Man, there you go. Week 14 of the CFL season. Here we are.
Week 2 of my mustache.
So you're trying to connect.
Well, this is getting long.
It is. Oh boy, got a nice little soup straighter there. I love it. Rate, review, and subscribe to Two and Out on your favorite podcatcher. If you like what you see, which you probably don't. You can leave us a comment, ring the bell, and subscribe on YouTube as well. Two and Out will be back on Thursday to get you ready for Week 15.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.